Welcome back to another episode of Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Jaime Agostino. On this podcast, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today, we are sitting down with David Brehmer, retiring CEO of Vizo Financial. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Jaime, thank you for inviting me.
Well, before we get started, in case there's anyone out there that doesn't know you, would you mind sharing just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am married for 44 years, amazingly, and I've been in the industry 44 years. I started out in San Diego, 15 years working at the natural retail credit union side before I moved to North Carolina. Got involved with the corporate. Also serve on the foundation board locally and a board of a local credit union. So I've been dedicated my whole career to credit union.
All right. So I'm going to go right into what was the pivotal moment in your career when you knew that you would spend the rest of your life working in this industry?
So I didn't know exactly. I wasn't someone who came out of college knowing, hey, this is what you want to do. In fact, I was applying to law schools when I decided, hey, I'd like to take a break, get a job, and see how things go. So first interview at a credit union, I was sold on this idea of financial cooperative, but the first credit union, I was like, I don't know. I then took a job at a second credit union where I really kind of learned the industry. But I would have to say it was when I went to Western Community Management School in 1990 and was thrown into being president of the class for 3 years. Then I went back as a graduate assistant after I graduated. And I think that was the moment I realized, hey, I can do this thing. I can advance. I built a lot of self-confidence, but I think it also realized you can be yourself and to work in an industry that kind of places how you feel, heart with your mind and how you think how business should be run. It's a pretty special industry. And that's when I kind of knew, okay, this is it. I am where I should be.
All right. Well, you said you kind of started your career, in the natural person credit union, but tell me a little bit more about that. How did you become involved in the credit unions and what did you do there?
How did I first get involved?
Yes.
The first hiring? I needed a job is the major thing. So my first credit union was North Island Federal Credit Union. I was working on the Naval Air Station. Back in the late 70s, I started in 1979. I think what got me interested, I worked one day, they hired me in member service. I worked one day and they said, hey, I think you'll be bored in this. And I said, okay, well, what do you have for me? And they put me in collections. So here I am, 21 years old, collecting from military and guys. I did a lot of phoning of parents acting like I had served in the military with these members to get their new address or phone number, which they all gladly gave me. But that was interesting. And then a year into that, I moved in accounting. But I remember leaving my first job thinking, I don't know how professional this is. I quit and I went to Europe for 3 months, came back. I got hired at a small credit union, which I wasn't sure I was going to get back into credit unions. And the small credit union, I think we were about 7-8 million. But the CEO was very innovative and we just grew very rapidly. And at a small credit union, you're exposed to everything. Yeah. So I kind of got to learn everything, strategy, budgets, the financials, branch operations, and it gave me a really well-rounded perspective on credit unions. And then we ended up merging into a larger credit union because, hard to believe now, but we were having a hard time staying above 4% capital, which today I think the minimum 7, if you're below 8, you're probably by NCUA standards undercapitalized. but the minimum was 4%, and we were growing so rapidly, we had a tough time staying above that. So we ended up merging in the San Diego County Credit Union, where I served on the senior management team there, and had a great time. And that was when I went to computer management school and realized, hey, I can do this.
All right. So, during your career, I'm sure you've seen periods of success as well as challenges. What would you say was the highlight of your career in the credit union industry?
Well, I think CUNA School, I was recognized. I had the Charlie Clark Award for Leadership, which was very special because it was voted on by your classmates. And that was a wonderful trip. But then I think in the corporate system, very quickly, my idea when I get involved with anything, I'm all in. So I got a year into getting with the corporate, I became a volunteer at U.S. Central. And then after several years, I became chairman of the board at U.S. Central from like 99 to 2003, when we were doing great organization, which is why I was really sad to see the trouble that ran into later. But that on a national scale was huge, and really also was something very enjoyable. And I would say, in addition to that, is, as you know, having been at the corporate through the financial crisis, going through that is the lowest point in my career, but emerging successfully from that. And really, I would say the merger that brought First Carolina and Mid-Atlantic together and formed Vizo Financial, at that point in my career, knowing I was, most of my career was behind me, my main interest was leaving a company that was stronger, much stronger than I found it. And I think it's the best thing we could have done for really both corporates was to bring them together and form Vizo.
All right. Well, you already kind of mentioned, I was going to ask, what was the most challenging moment? And I'm thinking you're going to say the financial crisis. So my follow-up to that would be, what helped you get through it?
What helped me get through was my staff and my people, and particularly my senior management team, because you go through a crisis when you lose your capital. And I looked at my company, and no one in my shop had done anything wrong. And we didn't know whether we would survive. We had about 2 years before as we came out with the new regs, which needed to give corporates time to rebuild. And that's why when we look at where we are today, it's hard to believe it's the same entity. But it came down to the people. During that period, I often gave, almost every day, I'd give a verbal update to the whole staff. And I think it was transparency, but it was transparency on everyone's part in belief in what we did and that we did benefit credit unions. No question about it. I saw an email that I got from my two senior executives, basically telling me, you lead and we will follow. Just give us the orders. And they're still with the corporate today. So I wouldn't have made it without the people.
Yeah. So during your role here at, with the corporate, how has the corporate changed during your career, or the role of the corporate changed?
I think the role of the corporate is fairly similar to what it was. I think what's changed, we have a number of things. Consolidation is really changing the number of credit unions that we serve. The other big difference from when I started, which was roughly 30 years ago, is the difference between the large and the small credit unions was not as great as it is today. Then just as an overall industry, the complexity of the industry is so much greater than it was. And all this movement to digital, online, which then brings in speed, convenience, but also all the security risks that come from cyber. So it's a much more complex industry for corporates, and that's 30 years. If I go back to when I started in the late 70s, my first 10 to 15 years was only about 15 years into my career that we had computers, other than a dumb terminal. And when I started my first credit union, when our core system would go down, it might be down for 2, 3 days, which today is completely unheard of.
Wow.
I think what was acceptable, not that that was acceptable, but that's just how much less, robust systems were and how much more the expectation of quality so much higher today. And even, when I look at the consumer, what the whole financial services industry has done with convenience, and that you can pretty much transact everything you want with your cell phone. And it's pretty much given away. But supporting that requires a much more robust back office and systems and security, people and talent. So we really have, it's kind of like the industry. And I think the corporate basic role of the corporate, which is support its credit unions, has not changed. I think the key with Vizo Financial and any corporate is adapting to the change that we see in front of us now and making sure that as the credit unions need change, we adapt to those changes. So what we do today may be different than what we do in 5 years, 10 years. What is pretty much important for us is the managing of the short-term overnight funds. Really allows us to do everything for the credit unions. But we'll say we're in the best financial condition we've ever been in. So I think for our member owners, that's great news.
Yeah. All right. So David, what is your favorite part about the credit union industry?
I don't even have to think about this. I love the people who have made credit unions their career. I do believe in our mission and passion, and that's why I really love serving as a volunteer at Latino Community Credit Union, because that was kind of the grassroots of working with a membership that really needs services. But I remember was at HR 1151 when we took buses up to DC, and I got off the bus. I remember looking around at the crowd, and I just was thrilled that I was a part of this diverse group. It was clearly not a group of bankers. And it's really been the people have been the motivation, both the members, but also, my employees. I talked to a lot of people in different industries, and they have not had the same experience for a long period of time that I've had, where I have friends over the years. I have friends that I worked with 4 years ago that I keep in touch with.
Yeah. I mean, we become a family and we say industry, but it's more like a credit union family.
It really is. And as I say, I get jumped on this idea that, the credit union difference is not the fact that we're tax exempt or the structure. Yes, that makes us different. To me, the difference is the people who decide to make credit unions their career, because they buy into it, they believe in the system, in the mission. And I kind of think credit unions is an ideal, and that at our very best, we're really improving the communities that we serve. And that's what the kind of, and as you know, with any ideal, you never truly reach it, but you always go for it. And I love that about this, but it's really, it's the people, and everyone I know in the industry who's left says, hey, I don't miss the work, I miss the people.
So any words of wisdom to someone aspiring to be the next CEO of a credit union or corporate? Any words of wisdom?
What I would do, what my advice is absorb everything, be a constant learner. I learned from good supervisors, good leaders, and I learned from bad leaders. So absorb, take in the good traits you see of leaders that you work with, you've experienced, discard the others. What I always wanted when I came into a leadership position was I wanted to make sure I didn't act like the bad actors I'd seen. And I think, and the advice I've given it to Fred, who's taking my place, is, the CEO job is the one job you get nothing done on your own. So understand that it's the people that work for you that are going to get everything done. And you may get the credit, you'll also get, the discredit if things go bad. But remember to treat your employees with the understanding that the only way you're successful is they make you successful, because they do their jobs and they do them well. So it's about the people, but it's also about just absorbing. I also think it's very important to connect with people outside your own company. When I started growing my career, I got involved. I became president of the chapter at San Diego County. I volunteered to serve on educational committees. I just volunteered as much. And I've always said in life, half the battle is just showing up. If you don't show up, you don't have a voice. You show up, make sure you're all in for whatever you do. And make sure it's what you want. Because some people think they want it and it may not be. I think on any job you really go for, make sure this is what you want, because you're not going to be any happier with a title if you don't like the kind of work you're doing.
Right. So, David, my next question, what do you plan to do in retirement?
Wouldn't I like to know? I would love to know that. The big news is, as you know, probably January, I'm going to become a grandfather. And I think the biggest thing that I'm aware of is, number one, I'm getting older, but I'm more aware of what I don't have time to do so I'm not one of these CEOs that's counting down the minutes. There's a lot I'm going to miss about the job and the people I work with. But I'm very aware that, my family, I have no family local where I live. And seeing my daughters once or twice a year just doesn't do it. I want to spend a lot more time traveling to see them, my brothers and other family. I want to do a lot of travel, and have lined up a number of trips already, which I'm excited about for 2024. But I was telling someone, with my schedule in all the meetings that we stood up and how kind of focused on dialogues and interaction with employees. This is the first year I haven't opened a calendar by December 1st, and like every month has already been chunks blocked out. So it is kind of nice. I have to say, I went out, I bought myself a planner for 2024, even though I'm retired. My wife said, "What are you doing with that?" I said, "Look, I got to keep all of our plans straight. So I've got all the theater, all the concert tickets, but all of our travel. As you can tell, I'm somewhat, I like to be organized, at least to some degree, disorganized minute to minute, but in the big picture, I'd like to know what's going on. So I'm not leaving the industry completely. I'm going to stay on the board at Latino Community Credit Union. I'm going to stay on the board at the Carolinas Credit Union Foundation. But those are very different than in it every day. But that'll allow me to complain to the corporate about member service or something. Well, I was telling Fran, I said, I should try to go to the financial conference next year as a board member of Latino, just to say hi to everybody. But we'll see. I mean, if I end up leaving the area, because most of my family's out west, then I'll have to, step down. But I couldn't just completely cold turkey.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
I would say for everyone watching, probably in the credit union industry, take a moment to realize you're in a special industry. Take care of this industry that I love and that I devoted my career to. really, uh, I think I've said this before. My brother, who was my best friend, who passed away earlier this year, radio DJ, and he always used to end his radio programs with the same line, which was take nothing for granted. It's great to be alive. And I really believe that. And I try to live my life that where each day is special, to make the most of the life that you have and make sure that people around you know that you care. So that's my words of advice coming straight from the heart and from my brother. And Jamie, I wish you the very best of luck. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you as part of my leadership team.
Thank you. David, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. But more importantly, thank you for your encouragement over the years, your leadership, and your support as well. So really appreciate it. And you've definitely left a mark on a lot of us. So thank you so much for that. And with that, thank you so much for listening today. And always make it a great day.